Here we are, beginning the 12th chapter of the 4th act of the journey home. May this reading relax your mind and awaken your heart. In December, the days were growing shorter, and by late afternoon the temperature dropping. As I wrapped a cloth over my head and started down the pilgrim's path to the river Yamuna, the life of the forest stirred around me. Birds and peacocks warbled their evening songs, farmers returned from the fields, and Vrajabasi women clad in orange, green, and yellow saris glided along the path with huge pots of water balanced on their heads. Suddenly I spotted a familiar figure ahead. It was Shyama Sundar, the devotee who had fed me spiritual food in Amsterdam and taken such an interest in my well-being in Bombay. Even from behind, I recognized this tall American who served as Srila Prabhupada's personal secretary. His right hand was buried in a bag of beads, and he was chanting as he advanced toward the river. I quickened my pace to catch up and shouted his name. He turned to look, and a smile of recognition flashed across his face. "Ah, Richard, or what do they call you now?" "Some people call me Krishna Das." He wrapped his long arm around my shoulder and pulled me close. "So, Krishna Das, I hear you've been living in Vrindavan for a while now. It's so great to see you again." We stood for a moment on the path, exchanging pleasantries. Something told me that this man, in time, would come to own a special corner of my heart. It seemed as though I had known him forever. "Srila Prabhupada likes you very much," he volunteered. "He often asks about you." "You are very fortunate to be so close to him," I said, elated. "And every day, too. I can't even imagine." "Yeah," he laughed modestly. "Sometimes I pinch myself to see if I'm dreaming. You know, I've been around him for nearly 4 years now, and he just seems to get younger and more beautiful every day. He's always fresh. I've never even seen him sleep." "Do you remember the first time you saw him?" I asked. I was eager to hear as much about Prabhupada as I could, and to understand how others had decided to change their lives so radically to follow him. On the riverbank, sitting cross-legged, Shyama Sundar rocked slowly back and forth. It was in Haight-Ashbury, San Francisco. Is that right? I remember one of you taught me how to pronounce it. I think it was Donsuela Priya. I think it was Haight. Or maybe Haiti? No, Haight, probably. Haight-Ashbury, San Francisco, January 1967. My friends and I had put together this big rock and roll dance at the Avalon Ballroom. We called it a mantra rock and dance. Everyone was there to welcome the Swami to the West Coast. The Grateful Dead, Janis Joplin, Jefferson Airplane, Canned Heat, Quicksilver, and Moby Grape, they all played. Even Allen Ginsberg, Timothy Leary, and Ken Kesey, not sure, were there. All the hippie heroes came. Shyama Sundar became excited and his body rocked faster. Picture this scene. The whole place is pulsating with strobe lights and rock and roll, packed with wild, long-haired kids, most of them on acid. Then, about midnight, Srila Prabhupada walks quietly onto the dark stage and sits down cross-legged on an elevated seat. The place falls silent. Srila Prabhupada begins humbly chanting the Hare Krishna mantra. A spotlight finally locates him, and gradually the crowd joins in the chanting. Then, one by one, the rock groups come on stage to join him, and the rest is history. For 2 hours, Prabhupada led the most incredible kirtana you can imagine. When he danced with his arms upraised, he won the hearts of thousands. Or as he put it later, I have turned hippies into happies. I tried to imagine Srila Prabhupada living in Haight-Ashbury, the world capital of the hippie culture. Gary and I had spent some time there in 1968. From what I remembered, it was like a universe unto itself, filled with peace-loving hippies, starry-eyed seekers, drug dealers, junkies, tourists, entrepreneurs, and Hell's Angels roaring up and down Haight Street on their majestic chrome-plated Harleys. I just couldn't imagine the elderly saint from Vrindavan living there. How long did he stay? I asked. 4 months. He lived with us American kids. We could hardly understand what the Swami was telling us. All we knew is that we were in love with him. This beautiful person sitting in a small apartment above a laundromat who was happy to meet anyone who came to see him. And what really got me was that he was always joking. Sometimes he would lie back and laugh so hard that all of his teeth would show and tears would roll down his face. The riverbank was beginning to grow dark and chilly, the air filling with wood smoke from village cooking fires. I suggested we walk along the river to Kesig Hut. We both rose to our feet, and he dusted off his backside. As we walked along, Shyama Sundar continued, telling me how Prabhupada won the hearts of the Beatles, and especially George Harrison, and how devotees became such close friends with the superstars residing in John Lennon's home for months. How could that happen, if not by divine providence? He asked. All I could do was smile. And Prabhupada didn't want anything from these guys. He just wanted to give them the secret of life. In the first meeting with John and George, Prabhupada saw into their hearts, and he was so charming, telling them very simply that Krishna is the Supreme Person and describing what he looked like. And he said and did how much he loved music and singing and dance. And then he promised them they could meet Krishna face to face. Stopping in my tracks, I couldn't believe I was hearing about the Beatles while walking along the bank of the Yamuna River in Vrindavan. I just had to laugh. Shyama Sundar stopped for a moment, excited to tell the story. A tear streamed down his cheek as he stuttered. I remember before their first meeting, George whispered to me outside Prabhupada's door that he was really scared, more so than going on Ed Sullivan or meeting Elvis. But when he bowed down and Prabhupada greeted him heartily, it was like watching two ancient friends reunited, taking up where they left off. On the way out after that first meeting, George turned to me and said, "Yeah, Prabhupada is the real thing." It had been over a year since I had last listened to rock and roll music. 10,000 miles from home, in a village in India, it had been the farthest thing from my mind. Still, I relished the idea that George Harrison of the Beatles was taking his spiritual life so seriously. I was feeling him to be a brother, sharing my cherished ideal. What a small and wonderful world, I thought. As I sat on the steps at Kesig Hut with my new friend, I observed meteor showers to the north. Shyama Sundar looked up and began telling me about Srila Prabhupada's visit to Russia. In those years, because of the Iron Curtain, nobody could get into Russia, but once again, Krishna paved the way to facilitate his devotees' desire. We had no plan, no proper food. We stayed in tiny, ill-lit rooms, and there was an overall depressing atmosphere of fear and repression and gloom. What were we going to do there for 5 days? Shyam Sundar went on to say that he had been wandering around Red Square when he met the son of the Indian ambassador and a young Russian man named Anatoly, who came back to the hotel to meet the Guru. For 3 days and nights, Anatoly stayed at Prabhupada's side and absorbed like a sponge everything Prabhupada taught him. Prabhupada was full of charm and humor, but also precision, as he taught Anatoly the entire Krishna consciousness process. Then we left Moscow, Prabhupada and I together, but from that seed, now Krishna's teachings are spreading like wildfire underground behind the Iron Curtain. Looking upstream into the horizon, I recalled growing up in America, indoctrinated with fear of the Russians. As school children, we had air raid drills and were trained to duck under our desks in the event of a Russian bomb attack. In fact, several of the wealthier families in my neighborhood built fully stocked nuclear bomb shelters in their backyards, anticipating such an attack from Russia. Yet, in the height of the Cold War, Shyam Sundar and Srila Prabhupada were in Moscow, blissfully teaching the path of Bhakti Yoga to a Russian. Why has Srila Prabhupada brought all you Western devotees to India? Shyama Sundar looked thoughtfully into the distance before answering. Prabhupada has often told us that real religion in this country is waning. Instead of God, he says, people want television and cars. I thought of the false guru I had met in Janakpur, whose highest ambition was to be a rich American. So I think he came back here and brought some of us along to say to the Indian people, just see, these Western boys and girls have everything, TVs and cars, more than you will ever have, and they were not happy until they found Krishna. You have something they want, Krishna, so you should export Krishna. Prabhupada has often said that with India's philosophy and America's wealth, the world can really prosper. He calls us Western devotees his dancing white elephants. I laughed and considered the brilliance of synthesizing Eastern philosophy with Western wealth and technology. I realized I had been so immersed in searching for God in my own life that thoughts of how to bring spirituality to others were far from my mind. I asked, "And how are the people of India receiving all of you?" Here in India, wherever we go, there are festivals of joy to greet us. But sometimes Srila Prabhupada is criticized to the point of death threats for giving initiation to Westerners, ignoring the caste system, or for engaging women in priestly duties. This impressed me. During my travels in India, I had witnessed oppression to the lower castes and women, and it had saddened me. Srila Prabhupada's courage to fight against it inspired me. Shyama Sundar continued, Srila Prabhupada is truly a revolutionary. He bent down to splash some river water on his face to refresh himself, and then stood up and stretched. Krishnadas, it is really a pleasure to meet you here tonight. Is there anything else I can do for you? What can I say? I rose to my feet. I'm just so grateful. I placed my hand on his shoulder. But I've taken so much of your time. I'll see you in class tomorrow. Shyama Sundar smiled. Thank you. You are right. I had better be getting back. He reached down and took my hands in his. Srila Prabhupada will be very happy to hear that you and I met. As I watched him hasten away, I felt immense gratitude, and along with that, a sense of blooming curiosity. Thank you for listening. I'm very grateful that I could listen with you as we read. If that sparked any insight, I'd love to go through that with you if you want to share. Otherwise, I very much look forward to continuing where we left off, starting the 13th chapter of the 4th act of the journey home next time.